Look, I need you to picture something for me. You're scrolling through social media and you see another post about some 25-year-old who just bought their third rental property. Meanwhile, you're sitting there making $40,000 a year thinking, millionaire status, that's not even in the same universe as my reality. But here's the thing that's going to sound absolutely insane to you right now. The math to become a millionaire on a low income isn't just possible, it's actually pretty straightforward. The problem is, nobody wants to talk about the real numbers because they're either trying to sell you something or they think you can't handle the truth. My name is Oric, and I spend way too much time thinking about why people who make decent money stay broke, while others build actual wealth on incomes that would make a financial advisor cry. If you're someone who's tired of hearing "just save more" from people who've never had to choose between fixing their car and paying rent, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. So let's talk about something that's going to make you uncomfortable. A study from the National Institute on Retirement Security found that the median working-age household has only $12,000 in retirement savings. $12,000! And if you're in the bottom 50% of earners, that number drops to basically zero. But here's what most people don't realize. The issue isn't that low-income earners can't save, it's that they're playing a completely different game with a rulebook nobody bothered to give them. Here's the actual math. Let's say you make $35,000 a year. That's below the median household income in most of the US. After taxes, you're looking at roughly $28,000 take-home. Now, conventional wisdom says save 10 to 15%. That's $230 to $350 a month. And if you invest that at an average market return of about 10% annually, in 40 years, you'd have around $1.5 to $2.2 million. Oric, you're thinking, that's great, but I can't save $200 a month when my rent alone is $1,500. And look, I get it. That's exactly the objection that keeps people stuck. Because here's where the psychology comes in. Most people think the path to wealth is a straight line. Make more, save more, invest more. But that's not how low-income millionaires are built. They're built on something completely different, and it's going to sound weird, but stay with me here. The real secret is this. You don't need to save a lot. You need to save consistently and increase that amount as your income grows, even slightly. Let me show you what I mean with real numbers. Let's say you start at that $35,000 income. You manage to save just $100 a month. That's 3% of your take-home. Not ideal by textbook standards, but it's real. You invest it in a low-cost index fund. Now, here's what changes everything. Most people's income doesn't stay flat for 40 years. According to the Social Security Administration, the average worker sees their income increase by about 1 to 3% annually, adjusted for inflation. Some years more, some years less, but there's usually some growth. Let's be conservative and say your income grows by just 2% per year on average, and you commit to increasing your savings rate by just 1% of your total income each year. Year 1, you're saving $100 a month at $35,000 annual income. Year 5, you're making about $38,000 and saving $190 a month. Year 10, you're at $42,000, saving $350 monthly. By year 20, even with modest income growth to $52,000, you're putting away $620 a month. This is where it gets really interesting. With this approach, starting with just $100 monthly and gradually increasing as your income grows, you'd accumulate approximately $900,000 to $1.1 million over 40 years. And if you can push that initial savings rate to $150 a month and follow the same pattern, you're looking at $1.3 to $1.6 million. But Oric, that's 40 years. I'll be old. Yeah, you will. You know what else you're going to be? Old anyway. The question is whether you're going to be old and broke or old and financially secure. That's the brutal truth nobody wants to say out loud. Here's what most personal finance gurus won't tell you because it doesn't fit their narrative. Building wealth on a low income isn't about deprivation or eating ramen for a decade. It's about making a fundamental psychological shift from "I can't afford to save" to "I can't afford not to save." And that shift usually happens when people realize something critical. Every dollar you don't invest in your 20s costs you approximately $21 in your 60s, assuming that 10% average return. Now, let me put that in perspective. If you're 25 and you spend $50 on takeout instead of cooking, you're not just spending $50, you're spending the $1,050 that money would have become by age 65. Now, I'm not saying never enjoy your life. I'm saying be conscious about the real cost of your choices. Look, here's the thing about low-income millionaire math that makes people incredibly uncomfortable. It requires you to think long-term in a world designed to make you think short-term. Your brain is wired to prioritize immediate rewards over delayed benefits. That's not a character flaw. That's neuroscience. The ventral striatum, the part of your brain that processes rewards, lights up way more for immediate gratification than delayed rewards. But here's how you hack that system. You automate everything. You set up automatic transfers on payday so the money goes to your investment account before you even see it. Within 3 months, your brain adjusts to the lower amount as your new baseline. This is called hedonic adaptation, and it's the same reason people who get raises often don't feel much richer after a few months. Their spending just expands to meet their income. The psychological trick is to reverse engineer that adaptation. Every time you get a raise, increase your automatic investment by half the raise amount before lifestyle inflation kicks in. If you get a $100 monthly raise, bump your investments by $50 immediately. Your lifestyle still improves, but you're capturing real wealth simultaneously. Now you might be thinking, this all sounds great in theory, but what about emergencies? What about debt? Fair question. Here's the reality check. According to the Federal Reserve, about 40% of Americans couldn't cover a $400 emergency with cash or its equivalent. If that's you, your first goal isn't investing for retirement, it's building a starter emergency fund of $1,000. Once you have that buffer, you split your focus. Put something toward investments, even if it's just $50 a month, while you aggressively attack high-interest debt. Why invest while paying off debt? Because the habit of investing is more important than the math early on. If you wait until everything is perfect to start investing, you'll wait forever. Life will always throw curveballs. Let me tell you about the compounding effect that nobody explains properly. Imagine two people. Person A starts investing $200 monthly at age 25 and stops at 35, never adding another dollar. Person B waits until 35 to start, but invests $200 monthly until 65. Person A put in $24,000 total. Person B put in $72,000. At 10% average return, Person A ends up with around $1.2 million. Person B ends up with $790,000. Time in the market beats timing the market, and it absolutely crushes hesitation. Those 10 years from 25 to 35 are worth more than the 30 years from 35 to 65 because of exponential growth. That's the math they don't teach in school because it doesn't sound sexy. It sounds boring, consistent, methodical. Here's the part where I'm going to challenge something you probably believe. You think you need to earn more to build wealth. And yeah, more income helps, but I've seen people making 6 figures who are broke and people making $35,000 who are on track to retire millionaires. The difference isn't the income, it's the savings rate and the consistency. There's this concept called the wealth formula, and it's dead simple. Wealth equals income minus expenses multiplied by time and investment returns. Most people obsess over the income part, but look at the formula. You can get the same result by reducing expenses. Cutting $500 in monthly expenses has the same impact as earning $500 more, except it's usually easier and you don't pay extra taxes on money you don't spend. I know what you're thinking right now. Auric, I've already cut everything I can. I'm not living some lavish lifestyle. And I believe you, but here's what I've noticed after looking at thousands of people's finances. There's almost always $50 to $100 being spent on subscription services, convenience purchases, or semi-unconscious spending that could be redirected. Not eliminated from your life entirely, but redirected strategically. The average American spends about $337 monthly on impulse purchases, according to research from Slick Deals, not planned purchases,
impulse purchases. If you could recapture even half of that, you'd have $168 to invest. Over 40 years at 10% returns, that's $1.1 million sitting in impulse purchase form. Now, here's the mindset shift that separates people who build wealth from people who stay stuck. Poor people ask, can I afford this? Middle-class people ask, can I afford the monthly payment? Wealthy people ask, what else could I do with this money? It's not about being cheap, it's about being intentional. When you're looking at buying something for $300, you're not asking, do I have $300? You're asking, is this worth the $6,300 this would become in 40 years? Sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes it's not, but you're making a conscious choice instead of a default one. Here's your action plan, and I want you to actually do this, not just nod along. First,